Hey everyone, and welcome back to another terrarium build. Today we'll be making a bottle terrarium in this container right here. This terrarium is going to be a little bit different than what you guys have seen on the channel thus far, and that's largely because of the way that the container is shaped. Typically I would landscape with twigs and sticks and different elements like that, but I really want to pack this tightly with plants and have them be the showcase rather than landscaping. Now of course I'm still going to landscape, it's just not going to be as drastic as I typically would. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoy this demonstration, and as always, thank you for watching. With most of my terrariums, I like to start out by making a false bottom, also commonly referred to as a riparian layer. If you've watched any of my videos, you've probably seen me do this before. There are a lot of different ways that you can make a false bottom. However, this method by far seems to perform the best for closed terrariums. I'll explain why in a second. Anyways, let's begin by cutting some mesh. I'm using some carbon fiberglass window screen, which is cheap and readily available. There are alternatives that you could use, but I strongly suggest using something that isn't biodegradable. You also want something that is relatively porous, but not porous enough that substrate can fall through the holes. We will be putting gravel underneath of the mesh, so it's best to cut it slightly larger than the diameter of the bottle. You should end up with something like this. Now that your mesh is cut, you will need some gravel. You can use aquarium gravel or pebbles from a hardware store. It doesn't really matter. You want your false bottom layer to be around 3/4 of the depth of your substrate. This is not a rule, just a suggestion. I like to use a funnel to get my gravel into a container like this. Next, use a paintbrush or some tweezers to even out the gravel. Now that we have a nice layer of gravel, let's put the mesh in place. You can simply fold it up like this and drop it into the opening. Then use your tweezers to open up and flatten the mesh. By the way, I got this set of 12-inch tweezers on Amazon for around $10. Before I move on to the next step, I'll briefly explain the purpose of the false bottom and why I'm such a proponent of it. When creating a closed terrarium like this, the idea is that it maintains itself. After you water your terrarium, the water will build up in the bottom. However, we don't want this water to remain here forever. We want it to evaporate, condensate on the container, and then fall back down into the substrate, in effect replicating the water cycle. This will continuously water your terrarium. Further, the false bottom keeps said standing water separate from the substrate. This is important for the long-term success of your terrarium. If the substrate is continuously in contact with the water in a closed environment like this, it will quickly become putrid. The substrate will also compact around the roots of the plants, along with a host of other potential issues. This leads to why, from personal experience, I feel that this is the best false bottom for a closed terrarium. You could simply fill the bottom of your terrarium with gravel, sand, or some mixture of the two. Over time, the substrate would inevitably work its way into the rocks and make the false bottom layer of none effect. Sand, however, does work long term, but it doesn't allow the water to evaporate as efficiently. This is a problem because we want the water cycle to continuously occur on the daily. This leads me into the next step of the build. Here I have some crushed up lumpwood charcoal. You could also use activated carbon or rinsed bonfire coals. Do not use charcoal briquettes though, they contain unwanted chemicals. We're going to put a generous layer of charcoal on top of our false bottom. This will filter the water every time it passes down through the substrate. So the combination of the charcoal layer and gravel false bottom will simultaneously create a mini water cycle and filter the water. Now let's move on to the substrate or soil layer. I prefer to use this tropical substrate mix for my closed terrariums. You could use soil from outside if you want, or potting soil. Be advised the soil from outside can contain pests. To eliminate this problem, simply bake the soil on 350 for 15 to 20 minutes. To see how I made the substrate mix, follow the